13 and a half minutes after 8 on this Friday, the 9th of September 2022. It's a special edition of our program. We're focusing on the history and legacy of the mighty St. Jude's Hospital. On this, the 13th anniversary since that devastating St. Jude's fire. Joining me now, Mr. Cuthbert James. Mr. James has a 35-year history at St. Jude Hospital. He started off as an X-ray technician, was attached to the eye clinic before moving into administration as the HR officer and department administrator of the institution. Mr. James, thanks for waking up early. Welcome, sir.
Yes, hello. I can hear you. Yes.
Morning, Mr. James.
Morning. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. Nice to see you. Mr. James can't hear me. You have audio connection with him? Yes, we do. Welcome to the platform. Thanks for joining us.
You're most welcome.
No connection between yourself and I spoke earlier with another Cuthbert Cuffy James. There's no relation between the two of you.
Absolutely none. Just working colleagues, that's all.
Excellent. That's the face now on screen, Cuthbert James. The experience of working with Mother Irma and the other sisters. Let's start off there. What was it like for you?
I didn't get that. Come back again.
Your experience working with Mother Irma and the other sisters, what was it like for you? You were much younger, James, at that time. What was the experience like?
Okay, I had a very good relationship, a great relationship actually, working with the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother. I think they're the ones who helped form and mold me a little. It was a good experience being with them. I learned a lot from them, and I'm thankful for that.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. How was the hospital managed during that time?
The hospital was managed by the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother at the time. They opened St. Jude in October of 66. I joined them in November of 67. During that time, you had the sisters who were in charge of the different units at the hospital. So the medical floor, surgical floor, pediatrics. We did not have a maternity unit then, and a medical floor. They were the ones running these units. So during that period, we had probably about 9 or 10 sisters at the hospital at that time.
Excellent. There's a very interesting story, Mr. James, that arrangements were made for people to provide agricultural produce during those early days as compensation for service provided at the hospital. How did that work? Give us some insight about that very interesting story.
Well, yes. When people were discharged from the hospital, we did not give them a bill.
Yes.
But we gave them a note that says that it has cost the hospital X amount to provide medical care, and that any contribution you can make towards giving anything back to the hospital will be deeply appreciated. So the people who were farmers who had produce and those kind of things would come in and they would put in this produce on their bill. So we would wait, then we would put a monetary value to it, and that would go towards the payment of their bill. So that was a very interesting way of trying to do things in assisting the hospital in providing the food and so on for the number of volunteers and patients and whatnot. It kind of reduced our food bill at that time.
Reduce the operating costs. Interesting.
That's right.
People used to bring bags of yam, bananas, passion fruit, you name it.
Right, yam, dashing, you name it. Vegetables, cabbage, carrots, whatever they had, they would bring it. And I can tell you that the people, they really made the effort to do it. A lot of them made the effort to do it because they did not want that little note that said it costs maybe $400 or $500 for your care. They did not want that little note to stick there on the record.
Have we lost as a society, and we just dovetailing a bit, have we lost that sense of appreciation? Because these people seem to have appreciated and loved the service that they got, so they wanted to give something back, as small as it was. Have we lost that sense of appreciation as a society?
I would say yes and no. The thing about us is that we keep evolving, and the problem is that we forget what has happened in days gone by, and so we try to move on with the times. But at the end of the day, when you look at what is happening in St. Lucia, there are still people who are very concerned about the welfare of St. Jude Hospital. They try to see what they can do to help the hospital. There are business people who do that right in the south. And so I believe that there are still some people who are committed, others just don't care. If they feel they cannot get medical attention, they would run to their minister or to the government office, Ministry of Health and all that kind of thing. But it has been a struggle with St. Jude all along. All along it has been a struggle. Because the sisters used to subsidize St. Jude, and it was interesting the way it subsidized St. Jude, in that the sisters in the US would work for a salary, and then part of that salary would go as a contribution towards the running of St. Jude Hospital. The government also provided a subvention, a monthly subvention.
Very interesting how the early days, how it started in the early days to what evolves now. What was so special about St. Jude's that caused people to travel from Castries and other parts of the island to seek medical care down in Augier, Vieux-Fort?
Okay, very early in the first years of St. Jude, the sisters, they had quite a number of affiliations with hospitals in the US and some of these volunteer organizations. And so they created that bond between St. Jude and these volunteer organizations. And we began to get volunteers coming down to the hospital to help us operate the institutions. So services that were not provided in St. Lucia, for example, ophthalmology, which is eye services, dental services, orthopedic, that kind of stuff, nose and throat. We all got all these kind of services being brought in by volunteers, and a number of St. Lucians benefited from that. I mean, even like the babies who were born with the cleft palate, that split on their lip and whatnot, we had volunteers who came down and helped make these children look good again.
Yeah. There are lessons from the operations of St. Jude's in these earlier times. In your mind, are there any which can help inform what's happening now in terms of the service that's offered?
I didn't quite get your last sentence.
Sure. The lessons learned from the earlier times, in your mind, are they any relevant now which could help inform what's happening at St. Jude's now in terms of the service offered, and not just at St. Jude's but across our healthcare sector?
Well, I truly believe that the volunteer services at St. Jude was beneficial to St. Lucia, of great help to a lot of us, and you still have a lot of people who are looking forward to that kind of service, because remember that we're a country where we have the rich, the poor, the in-between. So you have the poor people who can benefit a lot from those services. Some of those people who still need the services can, if we had that program going on, we can still get it. As far as I understand, there's still some kind of service going on with a pediatric service for kids who have cardiac problems and whatnot, that you have a team that comes on, assess them, and can send them to the US to do some of the heart surgery that is needed. So there's something still going on with St. Jude, but it's not on the scale that it used to be. And unfortunately, that has kind of, the service that we really were providing in the earlier days is no longer available. But having said so, you have a team of doctors at St. Jude, St. Lucians, who are fully qualified and who can provide a lot of those services. But then these things cost a lot of money now, because people still have to find the money to pay for it. With the volunteer services, people who would come in, and even if they didn't have the money, would help them along the way.
Absolutely, we benefited from that service era at St. Jude's a lot on the island of St. Lucia. Where were you, Mr. James, on the night of September 9th, 2009?
I was in my bed. I was sleeping, and I have two kids who are medical officers at St. Jude, and my son called me to tell me the hospital is on fire. I said, "What do you mean the hospital is on fire?" He said, "Daddy, the hospital is burning." I said, "Oh no." I quickly put on my clothes. I rushed up. I couldn't even get close to the hospital. In all honesty, I live very close to the hospital. I had to stay back because the fire service, they were trying to get through. People had, blocked both sides of the road. So the fire truck coming through had to, some people, their vehicles got damaged because they wouldn't, it was so bad the way the traffic was on the road. But it really hurt my heart to see how this fire was raging. You could hear the blast going off when the oxygen tanks were bursting. It was so sad. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
In the immediate aftermath of the fire, St. Lucians came together in numbers to make their donations as small as they could and to show solidarity to the staff at St. Jude. That must have made you feel good.
Yeah, a lot of people did that. Actually, right after the fire, I donated the use of one of my vehicles so they could transport the patients because the ambulance couldn't do all, so I gave a nurse one of my vehicles to transport the patients. They went down to the Vieux-Fort Secondary School first, and then because of the airport, they had to find a place where they could have an emergency service, and so during the morning hours, they moved out of the secondary school into the stadium where they could put in that emergency room so the flights could come in. So yes, a lot of people put their hands together to try and help St. Jude at the time, and for this we are eternally grateful. Unfortunately, some people perished in the fire. It was something that was something unavoidable in spite of the fact that the people tried to save them. But 13 years on, and we're still waiting for a hospital. It's sad.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. You saw the donations from the school children, from the corporate people. Yourself, you donated in the immediate aftermath, and hundreds of St. Lucians here and abroad donated. 13 years, we're still waiting for St. Jude's. Millions have been spent. Where have we gone wrong?
It's difficult to tell because there's the political divide. One cannot help but look at the dice that's been thrown around to see who's going to do St. Jude, who's going to finish it, and that kind of thing. And I believe it's unfortunate that this thing has happened. However, when I look at the resilience of our people in the South, they've tolerated a lot, and they still continue to tolerate a lot. But I do believe that if the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother were there during the time that St. Jude got burnt, we probably would have been back up and running within 2 years. And even if I think they would have provided probably a skeleton service at the part of the hospital that was not burnt. That is my opinion, because knowing the sisters as well as I do, I think they would have made a very big effort in trying to get that hospital back on track, because they have the expertise, they have the affiliations, and that would have been very good if they could have gotten some people from US or what who knew about that hospital, the way it was built, to try and get some help to finish that, to repair that hospital. I believe we played too much politics with it now.
Sister Irma has passed on, and many of the early days sisters have passed on as well, but the institution still remains. Sisters of Sorrowful Mother still remain. Knowing the contribution that they made, their hearts must be still burning at what's happening on the ground with St. Jude Hospital that they donated to us.
Yeah, you're right about that, because those people that I still communicate with, some of them they have a convent at in Vieux-Fort, and there are about 5 of them there, and I mean they still talk about St. Jude. It hurts them to see that they put so much effort into it. That hospital, as I said, came into existence in 1966. The sisters left around 1993, 93 I think, January 93, and the government took over. But you know, the struggles that we went through with St. Jude, that the sisters went through, and they made sure that everything went on right. You know, I don't know. It's sad. It's really sad to see what has happened.
Now, Mr. James, you're no expert. You're no engineer. You served your years at St. Jude, but you're no expert in engineering. But you live not too far from St. Jude. It's in your backyard. What's your preference? What do you see on the ground? What is your preference in the two institutions as the best option for completion?
Okay, and that's my opinion. What I'm going to give you, it's not a political opinion. It has nothing to do with politics or the road that's going on with it. St. Jude Hospital is the old institution is over 70 years old. We have multitude of problems with it, especially with our plumbing, electricity, and that kind of thing. I do not know to what extent, and I cannot say to what extent that they have, or the amount of work that has been done there. But having said that, and you have a new building that has gone up, I think there's an excellent opportunity to finish that building, put the hospital in that building, because you can put in what you want there right now instead of trying to go and retrofit or anything like that. You can put in what you want, put in your rooms, your facilities, everything. And I believe that the old St. Jude would have a place, an opportunity for them to use it again, whether they turn it into a teaching hospital, whether they turn it into a university hospital, whatever it may be. There's also the rehab hospitals that you have where people come to recuperate from the US. You know, something can be done with the old St. Jude. But right now, the way I see it, and that is, as I say, my humble personal opinion, that they can finish the new hospital, they can put in the necessary plumbing, electricity, and whatnot to conform for the use of a hospital, that they will not have all that to worry about. They won't have the problem of mold and all that kind of thing that people are so concerned about. I mean, it's time that we move on and move ahead and try and make our facilities look good.
Finally, Mr. James, you've tolerated a lot. The people of the South have tolerated a lot. How much more can you tolerate, and how much longer?
I don't think we can tolerate it anymore. That's the problem. I mean, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's time now. Every time you listen to the news, you think you'll hear something about St. Jude, and nothing has been happening. So I believe the time has gone past. See, that hospital should have been finished, say, since 2011. That's my opinion.
Yeah, according to you, the Sisters of Sorrowful Mothers, they would have done it in 2 years post the fire.
I think so.
I have confidence that they would have. I also have confidence that our friends from Taiwan would have done so if we had agreed to their offer to rebuild the surgical ward.
Whilst I'm on air, I want to put that on record. I want to be very thankful to the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother for the contribution that they made to St. Jude Hospital and St. Lucia on the whole, because people came from far and wide for the kind of services that were offered at St. Jude, and I believe that augured well for St. Lucia. A lot of people who were blind were able to see again. A lot of people who were infirm were able to walk again. I mean, a multitude of people got the benefits that the sisters provided, and I'm very thankful for that, and I hope that God continue to bless them and keep them safe.
And we place on record as well, Mr. Cuthbert James, our appreciation on behalf of all St. Lucians for your years of service at St. Jude's, and we also celebrate your two children and all the hard-working staff at the current St. Jude's Hospital for all the service that they continue to provide.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Pleasure was ours hosting you this morning. Very insightful contribution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cuthbert James, my guests on this edition of Beyond the Headlines were sponsored by Flo. I will allocate 15 minutes before we end at 9 o'clock for us to open up the phone lines and give you our viewers and citizens of St. Lucia an opportunity to call in. It's the 13th anniversary since the St. Jude's fire. What went wrong? How can it be corrected? And how soon must we get St. Jude's Hospital up and running? We'll give you an opportunity to weigh in on those and other aspects of the discussion when we open the phone lines for 15 minutes before we end. My next guest is already standing by. We promised you a lot on this, the 13th anniversary. Our time now 27 minutes before 9 o'clock. We'll take a short commercial break. Good morning, St. Lucia, the newest morning show on TV. We thank you so very much for making us your choice, though. We brought to you the kind compliments of the Bank of St. Lucia, Flo, Tropical Solar, and Salt.